Okay, hello and welcome to the week 7 recap of The Bachelorette. Remember how I said a couple of times that I had an issue with Xavier because he didn't like it that the other guys were telling Charity what Brayden was saying behind her back? Well, I guess when someone tells you who they are and all that, we're going to find out in this episode. So where we left off is Aaron went home last week, and even though I wasn't a great fan of his, I found him a little bit too serious. I don't know, I started to warm to him a little bit again, especially after the hometowns, like seeing him with his family, how he interacts with them. Like, he's a nice guy, he's a good guy. Anyway, it was surprisingly sad to see him go. Joey to me is cooked, he's done after that disastrous hometown. I can't get out of my head how much the mother was crying. She looked distraught. Anyway, on to this week's episode. We're in Fiji this week, and 3 guys remain: Xavier, Joey, and Doton. Xavier says that he couldn't have imagined before this the idea of spending the rest of his life with somebody. Charity says to the host that Xavier is the one that she's most worried about. She doesn't know if it's her own insecurities, but she feels like she needs to know whether he's really ready for marriage and something serious. Anyway, the first date of this week is with the man himself, Xavier. They're really excited to see each other, and the people of Fiji give them this warm welcome, and they perform these kind of wedding or lovers rituals for them. And Aaron and Charity are very respectful and everything, but I don't know, I found it really cringy. I don't have an issue with people sharing their culture in this way, but it just kind of felt like touristy and cheesy and just kind of cringy. Anyway, I was kind of wondering whether Charity did this with the whole kind of lovers ceremony and, you know, confessing your love to each other. Did you do this to kind of test Xavier a little bit? Because if she did, then that's a good move, because Xavier says in his testimonial that this was intense for him. By the way, the accent of the people from Fiji sounds vaguely South African. Is this because of the New Zealand connection? It could be. Then we go back to the US for a little while, and guess who we see packing his bags? It's Aaron. He says that, well, Charity told him last week that she wasn't even sure that she was making the right decision by sending him home. So he basically wants to give her another chance. He wants to try and win her back. He's going to be flying to Fiji. Now, I was kind of wondering, is this romantic or not? I find it really awkward because breaking up with somebody in the first place is super awkward. You don't want to do it because you don't want to hurt a person. And then putting that person in the position to have to break up with you again, which I'm guessing Charity's going to have to do, because no way she's going to choose him. I mean, I'll be watching, but it's going to be a disaster. Anyway, back to Xavier and Charity. They're on their date and they're having dinner. It's the evening now. And Xavier says that his heart is all in, he's committed, and he's intrigued by the possibility of spending his life with her, but his head is saying stop, like he's having doubts. She says then, in typical lovely Charity fashion, we just need to focus on building a foundation here. If you can just envision that with me, then we can hold on to that. I mean, it's a really diplomatic answer because she's not going to choose him anyway. She's really good at handling the egos of all these men. Then it gets worse. He tells her, there's something that I need to tell you, and I need to tell you because I know that it's triggering for you. I cheated on my ex-girlfriend. At this point, I was kind of suspicious that Xavier was self-sabotaging. Like, if you don't want to propose, just say that and go, you know? But anyway, Charity decides that she needs to take a moment to herself, so she goes off, and then she decides, you know what, I'm going to hear him out. Let's talk about this. So she comes back. She says, you know, I endured this for 6 years. It's not something that I want to do again. They talk a bit about that. She talks about her expectations that, you know, zero tolerance policy for cheating. And then Charity wants to know more details about the cheating incident itself. And he says, oh my God, it's so bad. He says that the cheating incident happened multiple times over a 5-day period, 2 years into the relationship. So yeah, like this is bad enough, but like you're in the final 3 and you're coming with this now. This guy is not going to survive the night. And he also says that it was his mistake because before that, he was trying to make his girlfriend who he wanted her to be, and he knows that that was wrong. Charity, of course, she's like, well, how did you learn and grow from this experience? And he says, I learned to be a bit more introspective, and I also kind of questioned my character. And then he mentions like, yeah, what happens if I go with the boys on a vacation and there are a lot of distractions around? He says that it's going to be difficult for him to be faithful to one woman forever and lose his freedom. Charity says, well, she has no doubts about what she can give him in a relationship, and she doesn't even have doubts about what he could give her, but he needs to do the work. He needs to meet her halfway, but it doesn't seem like he can. At first I thought while I was watching this, like, why is Charity even entertaining this? Like, get the guy out of there. But it was kind of nice to see him sit in the hot seat and have her ask those questions. It was really entertaining. He says again that his heart is so into this, but his head, has doubts and he needs to see more. And Charity's like, yeah, spending the night with me isn't going to help you decide about whether you're not going to be a cheater or. Anyway, this episode is different because Charity can choose to have sex with the men or not, or invite them to her hotel room. She's like, yeah, well, you're not coming to my hotel room. And she gets rid of him and she walks him out. Charity says that she can't fix a man. This is not a build a man workshop. It's time to move on. So she moves on. On to her next date with Joey. So Charity comes out in this kind of go-kart, four-wheel drive, outdoor vehicle thing. And at one point, she's driving them to their destination and she gets stuck. Like the car won't move. The gears kind of, not moving. And Joey just sits there. He just sits there for and this goes on for a long time, like 5 minutes, and he just sits there in silence and watches her struggle. And eventually Charity's like, oh, well, would you like to drive? But she kind of does it in a jokey way to kind of ease the tension because yeah, that sucks. Even if Joey doesn't know what to do, he could at least, offer to help or ask what he can do, but he just sits there. Anyway, Joey's not able to get the car to start, so they walk to their destination. I hated that moment so much. Ugh. I don't know, maybe I'm exaggerating because I don't really think that Joey's a good fit anymore, but Anyway, they go and they have a sit down and they talk about the disastrous hometown, finally. And Charity says, yeah, well, Uncle Joe told me that it seemed like you weren't yourself. What was that all about? And Joey gives a fairly honest and kind of decent answer, I guess. He says that he was just a bit uncomfortable. He put a lot of pressure on himself. And up until that moment, Charity was arranging all the dates and everything was kind of on her terms. And now it was his turn, Joey's turn, to kind of entertain her and look after her and show her around or whatever. And he's just put a lot of pressure on himself to, do it right. And he just felt uncomfortable. He says that. And then obviously Uncle Joe came and then he's like, yeah, maybe I care too much about what people think of me. At first, it didn't feel like a satisfying answer, but I don't know. I got the sense that maybe Joey has some serious anxiety issues. So I guess he's just a little sensitive and anxious, and honestly, I won't hold that against him. Anyway, they're fine. They end up making out by the waterfall, and Charity says that she wants to tell Joey that evening at dinner that she's in love with him, but she wants to be ready. She wants to know that it's right. By the way, Joey also asks her when they're having that chat, was there anything else that, was said or that you felt uncomfortable about or that you want to talk about? And yeah, I really liked that. Anyway, that evening, they're having dinner together and Charity asks Joey, is there anything that you feel kind of nervous about moving forward? And he says, yeah, well, sometimes people tend to fall in love with the idea of him, and when they get to know him, sometimes that doesn't match up to the ideal. And because he is this kind of, nervous person who sometimes has their difficult moments, if he and Charity were to have more time together, she'd also see more of those moments. He's a good, nice guy, but he's human, and so he also has those difficult moments. And yeah, I thought it was really sweet the way that he explained it. Anyway, then he says to Charity, you know how I was telling you a week or two ago that I feel like I'm falling in love with you? I actually am in love with you. And Charity says that she's in love with him back. And then I understood this whole hotel thing. So in lieu of a rose that Charity gets to give the guys every week, she gets an envelope. And in this envelope is an option for them to either spend the night in their separate hotel rooms or together in one hotel room. And she decides to spend the night together with Joey. I mean, we don't know if they actually have sex, but they do share a bed together. The next morning, she's super giddy. She's not wearing a duck on her head, which is really concerning to me. Joey says then in his testimonial that this is something that he could see doing for the rest of his life. And he looks at ease, it's not forced, things are good. Anyway, they whisper their sweet nothings and they say their goodbyes. Now it's time for a date with Doten. They go jet skiing. The date is actually a lot of fun. And Doten says then that he wasn't aware what was supposed to happen at the end of the show. Actually, he doesn't know too much about the show. He didn't know that, the whole engagement marrying thing was supposed to happen until he was 3 weeks in. And I think it was when the guys were discussing it, when Sean was saying to Brayden, well, why are you here if you don't want to get married? And Doten says, and yeah, when I heard that and I thought about it a little later, I was like, you know what? He was like, I'm okay with it. And it didn't seem like he was making light of it or anything. It was just in a very typical, well-adjusted Doten way. He also says then in his testimonial that, he's confessed his love for Charity, but she still hasn't said it back. So his heart is on the line at this point, and he is a little bit nervous. He thought that fairy tales were never for him, but he's all into this. Anyway, they're so good together. They click so well. Anyway, that evening at dinner, she tells Doten that she's in love with him too, and they go to the fantasy suite together. It's called a fantasy suite. Next morning, we see that Charity's still not wearing a duck. Then Erin arrives at the hotel. Oh my God, he's so confident. The concierge is like, do you know the room number? We can't give that out. So Erin goes and looks for Charity at the pool. He finds her there, and I almost had to mute all of this because it was just so unbearable to watch. But it ends up not being that bad. He pulls her aside and he says, you know what, like you said that you weren't ready last week, and so here I am. Maybe, we can have another chance or whatever. And Charity says to him, well, yeah, I have been thinking about you every day and wondering whether this was the right decision. Really, Charity? To be fair, he's really chill about it too. He's like, you know what, you go do your thing and come chat to me when you're ready. I'll just be on the beach. Take as long as you need. And he also compliments her, like saying that she looks cute. And she really does. The bikini is stunning. Anyway, it ends with Charity in her testimonial. She's so frazzled about this, like, because she doesn't know what to do now. It seems like when she's stressed, her Southern Belle accent like really comes out. It's so chaotic. It's adorable. But yeah, by the end of the episode, she hasn't made a decision about Erin. And yeah, that's when it ends. I should say that next week's episode has the potential to be a good one because all of the guys who were sent home are going to have a reunion show. So that'll be fun. We get to see Hot John the data scientist again and Brayden the troublemaker. Anyway, I gotta go. That was it for week 7, and thank you for watching.